Hi, homeschooling families. Thank you for joining us for this special live. Hi, Daniel.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
No, it's great to be back home, and I drove 9 hours from Colorado all the way down here, and I got out of the car and I looked outside. I was like, "Yep, now I remember why I left to begin with."
So, Daniel, you were homeschooled by
Yes.
our dear team member. You guys that know Chris. Chris Carnes, Daniel's is her son.
Hello.
So you were homeschooled your whole life, pretty much.
Yeah, from I think kindergarten all the way through high school. I did the AFI graduation, so that was like, man, I feel so old now. It was like, well, I graduated in 2010, so it's like crazy that I'm over 10 years since that time. So it's like, oh great, now I'm hearing the songs that I grew up with in the radio and the grocery stores now. So
I know, it is kind of funny.
It is hilarious.
So. Chris and I used to be in the same homeschooling group, and my daughter Julianne, she's just a little bit older than you. She graduated in 2008.
Yeah.
And she always wanted to play with the boys, so she was playing with you and some of the other kids in the
I remember.
during park days. So homeschooling families, if you don't have a support group, join a support group, because that's how your kids make lifetime friends, and we moms make extra children. Yeah, Daniel. I'm Daniel's Peruvian mom.
Yeah, right. It's like, I'm Peruvian now, yay!
Yay! Yes, yeah. So when Chris and I do video lives, like Daniel has 2 moms, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Daniel calls Chris and we just get together.
And then she gets mad at me because I don't call her.
Oh, that's
know?
right. He doesn't call me as much as he calls his other mom.
Right.
But today we're here because yes, this is the other mom.
We're a big happy family.
Yeah, right.
So, Daniel, right now you are working as a financial advisor.
Yes.
And is that something you wanted to do your entire life? Are you one of those homeschool geniuses? This is what I'm going to do.
Funny enough, I was way later in the game until I figured out that finance was the career I was going to go into. I started off in the IT industry. I used to work for one of the major companies here in downtown Phoenix. And, I just remember sitting there like, feel like I'm not really going anywhere right now, and I'm not really feeling like I want to do this for the rest of my life. My wife, which, Jamie, hello, I love you. She was probably one of the bigger reasons why I got into finance. She was already in the finance industry, and then I just got bit by the bug, and just, a genuine curiosity turned into spending hours on Investopedia.com trying to soak up as much information as possible and just drilling her with questions and trying to understand stuff. And I remember she texted me when I was at work, and we were kind of going back and forth, and I was just telling her, I just feel like I don't want to do this. And she goes, well, why don't you just apply for finance jobs and kind of get your foot in the door and work your way up? I mean, you're definitely really interested in this stuff anyway. I was like, what a phenomenal concept. So yeah, I started off as a customer service rep. I got hired on with Charles Schwab, and then got my series licenses, became a stockbroker. So worked my way up to the advanced trading desk, and then the opportunity came up, and we were like, all right, we're going to move to Colorado and become financial advisors.
Wow, that's exciting.
So big long story.
Big long story, but it is great because it's really neat to see the different steps that you take. So sometimes if you graduate, you don't have to know what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life.
You're 18 years old and you're being pressured to, like, okay, have your life figured out right now. I was like 20, I think I was like 26 when I made that career shift, but I was already kind of figuring myself out within just kind of professionally what my career was going to look like. And the IT, that's what I studied in college, and that was the industry I started off with. It's still helping me to this day, even in finance, just the way that technology is changing everything. Oh yeah. So, but yeah, no. Ever since I got into the industry, I always kind of have a more thoughtful approach and like, okay, what can we do differently than what the traditional industry's been telling us for so long?
Absolutely. Yeah, a long time ago, I went to take my sewing machine to get fixed, and it so happened that you were working fixing sewing machines.
At the
Bernina.
Oh yes, yeah. No.
Yeah, so you've tried a lot of different things. It's really neat. So,
it was just a momentary side gig. A guy at my church, he was like, "Hey, I need some help, and you want to earn some extra money?" I'm like, "All right." So a lot of peanut jobs. I paid my dues, and then finally figuring out my way up.
Very good.
So yeah.
So this times sometimes during the last 2 years, a year and a half, I have felt that I'm going back to where I grew up from. Because I grew up in a third world country, and I have seen things in the USA that I never thought I would see happen. And one of them is the financial situation.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion? How important is it for homeschooler students to learn about finances?
Where to begin? So let me kind of preface it this way. So I'll have somebody that's about mid-30s, maybe almost 40 years old, walk into the office, and most of the time they just need some direction or some guidance. And the first question I ask, the first thing out of my mouth, it's not their name, it's not how much they have to invest, it's not their income potential. How much student loan debt do you have?
Oh my goodness.
And so let me say that again. How much student loan debt do you have? And it's kind of a funny experiment I like to play, but it's not really an experiment because I typically know the outcome. So typically when I ask that question, it will lead into a conversation. And the one phrase that I hear often, like 9 times out of 10, is, why didn't they teach us how debt worked in school? Why didn't they teach us X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth? And so homeschooling families, especially those that have joined the ranks for since COVID or the last year and a half, hi, you're welcome. You're too knee deep into it to get out now. So there's
keep homeschooling. It's the best.
Yeah, I know. You'll never go back. No. So homeschooling families have a massive opportunity to put their kids, their own children, way ahead of the curve than their peers that are going to a traditional public school. Just to give you the bullet points, if your kid can do 3rd grade math, you can start right there. Just how to do a budget. What's your income? You list out all your expenses. Are you in the black or are you in the red? Do you, it looks like you're spending more than you're taking in. Well, what do we need to cut back on? Well, do you need Netflix? Do you need the Wall Street Journal? Do you really need that bubble gum or whatever? So it's an opportunity to just start to form those really healthy, good financial habits that oftentimes graduates are lacking and have to learn the hard way. So I talked about budgeting. I talked about budgeting. There's saving and investing.
Savings.
That's a big deal. And the budgeting you can do like for someone that you're a little kid or kind of the middle school, elementary school age, and then once you kind of work your way into kind of the junior high or high school, you can start introducing those more advanced concepts like saving and investing. What's the stock market? How much of my income should I just shove in my savings account every month whenever I get paid? Taxes. I'm sorry, you expect me as an American to know how to file my taxes, but you're not going to teach me that in school. But hey, at least I can calculate the Pythagorean theorem, or algebra, it's just all the outdated math. But really, it's an opportunity to learn budgeting, living on less that you make, how to save and invest, just kind of a basic understanding of how taxes work. And a big one is, being generous or tithing. If you grew up in church and all that, there's tithing or just basic generosity. Whether you believe in reaping what you sow, what goes around comes around, karma's, what they found is that there's a high correlation between success and generosity. And that's something within our culture I think we desperately need. But those are just the highlights, I would say.
So I went through our bookshelf and I picked some books out. And take your little sip. And I figured some of the books, and I found this one. This one is actually for the parents, Raising Financially Freed Up Kids. So there was an interesting quote that I found in here, and it basically says that 80% of the parents think it is really important for their children to be a good role model and to teach good money habits. But out of those 80%, only 35% of the parents actually do it. So the intentions are there. So let's talk about what are some ways that we can teach students, so that parents, and actually, what's the beauty about homeschooling? Parents learn. So if you've never budget, if you've never learned about finances, while you teach your kid is your opportunity to learn. So it's a double whammy. You just learn, and they learn with you.
So I'm going to steal a little bit from Dave Ramsey. Well, it's not stealing, it's called borrowing. this, just learning good basic financial habits and teaching your kids young, you're setting them up for a very prosperous road kicking a very prosperous life down the road. And this is the kind of stuff that changes family trees. You talk about coming from a third world country, coming to the United States, seeing what you've never thought you'd ever see before, and just having the opportunities that we have here. But all what would have happened if you would have stayed in Peru, or what, who knows what could happen, So this is life-changing stuff. This is family tree changing stuff. So as far as resources and things that parents can do, I think the number one thing that we try, as in financial advisors, we try to focus on is the behavior. So there's a lot of bad habits. There's a lot of things that we need to get out of ourselves first, because if we want our children to learn, we have to learn, and when we have to model that, monkey see, monkey do. So Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, my wife Jamie and I, we actually facilitate that at our church back in Colorado. That has only, since COVID, that has only exploded. So that's a really good first start to go into. Even if it's just basic stuff like, okay, me and my spouse, we're going to sit down, we're going to do a budget. It doesn't have to be a piece of paper and you're writing pen and pencil down and it's boring. Like, figure out between you and your spouse who is the budget nerd and who likes to crunch the numbers, and then you don't have to you can do the traditional pen and paper. There's a lot of good apps out there. So big banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, I think, I'm trying to think of another one. But so a lot of those bigger banks on their apps have a budgeting feature on it that you could utilize. So Dave Ramsey talks about the Every Dollar app. That's a good resource. The one that Jamie and I like to use is Mint. And what's really cool about Mint is that it will track what you're spending throughout a month. And so, okay, we spent X amount of dollars on food. We spent, this much for the mortgage. We spent this much for, entertainment or leisure, And so it will track what your purchasing habits are. And then it will also, that way you can figure out, okay, this is my income. This is how much we want to budget for groceries or for just, going out to eat or going to a movie or, gas and other things like that. But what's also really cool is that you can go and plug in like your mortgage or your credit card, or how much you have in like your 401k or your investing account, and so it will show you what your net worth is based on what you owe versus what you own. And so that way it's like, okay, we're paying off the mortgage, and you see that progress in your net worth increase, and you get out of the red and you start getting into the black.
Oh, so I remember that.
There's a lot of good stuff now, especially nowadays, of just making it so much easier for you guys. But Mint is a really good one. I highly recommend doing.
So another thing I was going to say, this book, one of the things that I read here that they emphasize, don't argue about money in front of the children.
No.
So you guys have to figure things out, and sometimes there needs to be a little bit of sparks, because obviously you want to be respectful and treat each other well, but you have to iron out the disagreements and find a good middle. You have to do that without the children present.
So in our experience, it's you want to find the person so a little bit about Jamie and I. I am the stock market research investing nerd. Okay, that's just what I am. That's how my brain works. But my wife, Jamie, she would rather hit her head against the wall than have to do all that. Now, on the flip side, Jamie, it gets really excited, like, oh, I can, we got paid. I can finally do my budget, and she's writing everything out, and okay, this is how much we paid in this, and this is our bill, and this is that, and this is how much we have left over, and of course, this is me. Figure out what way you and your spouse as a couple fit in this grand picture of personal finance, and play to your guys' strengths. You don't have to be a budgeting genius. One of you already is, So it's playing to your strengths as a couple. And then, if Jamie presents a budget, and sometimes budget meetings can be very boring. So if Jamie proposes a budget and, she says, hey, can you come over here and look at this? Or can we schedule a time to sit down and talk about the budget? You may think it's absolutely boring, but the first big thing that you can do as the budget nerd is, hey, thank you for taking the time to look at this budget with me. Thank you for taking the time to talk about this. I want to make sure we're on the same page before moving
Absolutely.
forward. And so you'll find out that, money fights and money problems, that's one of the leading causes of
Yes,
divorce.
oh my
So
gosh.
you're setting not only your children and yourselves up, but your marriage up for success.
For success, absolutely. I love that. So another of the suggestions that I found in that book, because that book was for the parents.
Mhm.
So one of the suggestions was to give the children maybe some kind of tokens. So and the tokens would be to buy screen time, to buy special time, maybe with something they really want to do, to
Yep.
buy, and at the end of the week, if they don't use all their tokens, they could exchange them for actual money, so they could buy. So there's different ways that you can teach
Yeah.
your kids budgeting. I have this many tokens.
So one of the things that my father-in-law did because my father-in-law did for my wife and my sister-in-law was, okay, you did your chores, here's your allowance, and then he would basically say, they would go to the store and they had an opportunity to say, okay, well, what kind of cereal do you want? Well, the cereal costs this and you only have that. You could buy this toy or whatever, but that's but you can't go buy this other thing. So you're just trying to teach them, how to weigh pros and cons in their mind, but also you're trying to teach them delayed gratification. And so that's a big one, especially
Yeah.
now in the technological age of I want everything now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, so let's talk about some of the books that we
Yes.
have found. Okay, you can find all kinds of aids.
There's
There
so
are
much.
apps, books. You can really be overwhelmed. So if you find something that you like, I would just stick to that.
Yeah.
And something that works for you and your spouse. And like Daniel says, let the person that has the strength in the area and to take the lead on that, but always including the other, because you do want to be in the same team.
just like I said, just find the curriculum
Yes.
that works best for you and that kind of fits your mold and your child and what they need and what those important concepts you're trying to teach them.
So one tool that has popped up recently in especially the last 2 years since COVID, is that Tuttle Twins, and Covenant has an affiliate to it. Okay, Daniel, what do you think about the Tuttle Twins?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have these books at home, and I finally got around to reading. I've read 3 of them. I think I've read The Creature from Jekyll Island, The Messed Up Market. The Law is another one that's kind of unrelated. But oh my goodness, this is like gold. Like the amount of basically what the Tuttle Twins do is that they take source material. So for The Creature from Jekyll Island, this was actually a book there's actually a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. And he talks about the history of the Federal Reserve, which is our central bank that controls all the money, and and stuff like that. So it goes into the history. It goes into all the. This is just really good stuff. I'm just like, oh, this is so good. I want it. So if I had like a top 10, this is what you need in your artillery. Tuttle Twins, I would highly recommend.
Okay, so what I will mention about the Tuttle Twins is my youngest daughter is 27, so it's been quite a while since I've had little ones. And Chris likes to say that I'm a little more delicate, but I was reading this book and I actually got a little scared. I did get a little concerned for the children, and but what I did is when parents came in and they were like, "Oh, you guys have the Tuttle Twins," I went and I asked them, "So what do you think about like this page where
Right.
and just different pages that felt a little bit scary to me." And the parents said their children did totally fine. So I think my kids would have done totally fine too.
Yeah.
I got really good reviews.
Don't judge a book by its cover, and but I think an important thing to remember too, and it kind of goes back to those just basic life principles. I talk about the very beginning about how I've had a number of people in the office with a astronomical amount of student loan debt. It's a real problem, and these are real situations that real people have to go through, and it's hard, and it's heartbreaking most of the time because you're like I said, it's like you're 18 years old, you have to figure out your life, you're being when I graduated in 2010, we were just coming, from an economics perspective, we were just kind of starting the recovery from the '08 crash. What do you think my generation was bombarded with. You got to go to school. You got
Yeah.
better chances of getting a job. This and this and this and this and this. So you were like bombarded with that message, and so my generation, bought it. And sure enough, like we had it's just how the world is, and this isn't a perfect world. It is broken and it's fallen, and what we're trying to do is, inform your children, hey, this world will eat you alive. Just letting you know that A, it's out there, but B, what can you do to protect yourself from that? So there's a lot of good things that this stuff goes into that talks about the real world and just how it works and what it thinks, what needs to change.
Yeah.
So so I love the Total Twins.
I've enjoyed them too. I really like the one on the food truck fiasco.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that one.
Yes.
So they do have great reviews from the parents. Kids don't get scared like I was concerned they would. They really don't. They seem to do really well. So if you want to buy them, you can find Chris is going to put the link in our Facebook Live. Okay, so Chris, just to let you know, I'm not able to see the messages. I don't know why. So if somebody, you're not. Oh, there's none. Oh,
technical difficulties.
yeah, she can see them. Okay. So good. So I won't worry about
She can
that.
yell them over.
And if you have questions and if you're leaving messages and we're ignoring you, it's some Facebook technical stuff. So we will answer your questions afterwards. We'll have Daniel look through them and just we'll type up a little message. So put your questions in message. We'll get to them later.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me do a little mini review about some of your books that we have here. And again, there's a ton of them everywhere. So this one I use with my daughter. There's not that much Larry Burkett stuff anymore because he actually passed away.
Who?
Larry Burkett.
I know. I'm sorry, I have to show my age a little bit.
So he actually was very similar to Dave Ramsey. He was promoting to be debt-free. He was promoting to get a mortgage that you can afford well and pay it off as fast as you can. Again, and he was amazing. So we actually have a few of these books. They're a little outdated, but the finance information is pretty much the same. Budgeting, the only part that's outdated is probably checking accounts. And actually, that was a question that I wanted to ask about. So when you used to use cash more in your checking account, you would just like, okay, this is you have your little ledger. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
balancing a checkbook.
Yes. So parents, you can explain to your kids what a little ledger was. That we used to carry in our purses or in our pocketbooks for the guys or whatever.
I've taken enough accounting classes, more than I'd like to admit in college, but I remember the debit, credit.
Exactly. So it was pretty easy. So you would like write down, it would get subtracted. But now that everything is in debit cards with credit cards, it's so much easier just to pull it out and you don't even think, oh, what is my balance? Let me just buy. And it's easier. It's harder to stick within a budget. So so why would you recommend it?
It's number one, be extremely intentional. Like you need to stick to the budget. Every penny is counted, and you need, especially if you're in, kind of, I'm talking about everyone's spouses today, but it's like really hold, if you and your spouse agree to a budget, you guys got to hold each other accountable to that. And it kind of goes back to the kids. It's like you got to show the kids that, monkey see, monkey do. So you're talking, what she's alluding to is the emotional attachment that physical green pieces of paper have on our human psyche. Yeah. So if I just pull out like my wallet, for example, get out, George. There it is. Okay. I got good Uncle George right here. So when we spend money, this is physically touch. It's there. It's in your hand. You pay with cash. I feel that. I feel that loss. That there's something in your brain that goes off of the emotional attachment to this, and even goes back to Scripture when Jesus said that the love of money is the root of all evil. So it's typically you're utilized. So nowadays we still use cash to an extent, and so what credit card companies and even banks realized is that okay, if we can cut the cash out of the equation and move over to something like a debit card, we cut the emotional attachment out of it, and we're able to say, okay, well now because we take that emotional attachment and that pain that you experience when you pay with cash, it's so much easier to use a credit card or run up the balance on a credit card, or even even using a debit card from your bank account. And so what we really have to be intentional about is is, what we really need to be intentional about is recognizing there is that emotional attachment, and also putting enough safeguards and boundaries to keep you from overspending. So now, I hate to say it, and I won't go too crazy, deep rabbit hole, but at some point we're going to have a digital dollar. So right now, we had paper money, and then ACH transfers, wiring, between banks. Our central bank, the Federal Reserve, is talking about or going to be releasing some research on a central bank digital currency, basically a digital dollar. And even credit card companies kind of caught on to Dave Ramsey, and now, Apple came out with a metal credit card.
Oh, wow.
So you literally need the jaws of life to cut that thing from you. And, yeah. So it's really interesting. So I think moving forward, it's recognizing, okay, I have this budgeted for groceries. Oh, well, there's that. Nope, I don't need that. We have to recognize needs and wants. So it's just that, we just have, as we're moving into the digital age, we just need to be ready and set enough of those boundaries up to say, okay, I recognize that, we use dollars and paper money less and less every single day, and we're getting closer and closer to the digital realm. So we just need to recognize, I have to make sure I'm not abusing any power,
Exactly.
hurting myself financially at all.
Yeah. So one of the things that my husband and I did recently, we set up our credit card to give us an account. So once we go up over a specific amount of money, it tells us you've gone over that much money.
Yeah.
And so I did not realize, we're not big spenders, but still I was like, oh, we're spending more than what I thought we were, because you don't even notice, especially when you don't have to spend on the kids. So now you can spend the money on yourself.
Right.
So you don't notice how much you end up spending.
It's the little things that add up.
Totally
I'll just go to Jimmy John's, or I'll just go get more Starbucks here, and it's only $3, only $4, only $5, only $6. But then as you compound that, it adds up.
It totally does. So there's different tools out there. So look at your credit card, at your banking, and see what are they offering you. Things that would help you as reminders of how much you're spending, how much you want to spend, when you want to have a limit to be notified, or there's all kinds of tools out there. So we just have to learn about them. So technologically, people that don't like technology like me struggle a little more with that. But even I am getting to it there. Okay, so let's look at some of the other books that we have.
Sure.
One of my favorite books, and I actually cannot find a student book, so this is more like a guide. It is Whatever Happened to Penny Candy. So the book is amazing. So we don't have it right now, but it comes in every so often. And I look for my copy because I'm sure I did not get rid of mine unless one of my kids took it without telling me. But it is the story of Uncle Eric. Gets letters from his nephew and says, Uncle, this is what's happening, blah, blah, blah. So then, in the reply, Uncle Eric writes back and he explains the financial economics in a way that kids, even young kids, can understand. But I used it for high school because it was so enjoyable and it was fun and it didn't take too long.
So the thing that this book is alluding to, that this book touches on, is the concept of inflation. And not to get too nerdy on you, but if you go back through the centuries, kings and the elites of whatever empires and kingdoms, what they figured out was that you can only raise taxes on ordinary people so much so fast before they cause a revolution. How did we become a nation? So they figured out that it was a lot easier to destroy the value of our currency and to inflate it and diminish the purchasing power. It was so much easier to do that than it was to raise taxes on people. So there's a lot of crazy economic concepts to kind of, not saying that your kids need to be PhDs and what's the Nobel Peace Prize in economics or anything, but just to have, and that's why I mentioned about investing earlier. It's like, it's a game. You have to play the game. You have to be smart enough and knowledgeable enough about the game to make sure that you have enough assets when you are older, so that way you don't need to rely on things like Social Security or pensions if those institutions fail or stuff like that. And I can go into so much of that.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Okay, so another of the books that we have here, I took these books last night to my house, and I so enjoyed just glancing through them. So this one is for Nat Grass. If you want your child to, I'll review 3 economics books or 4. So this one is from Nat Grass, and they cover. They want you to have a grasp on economics.
Yep.
And what I enjoyed about it is that as it starts teaching the concepts, it also incorporates a lot of questions.
Oh yeah.
So this book, all the kids are able to work on them on their own independently. But I would actually, if the parent has the time, I would highly encourage people to do it together with the parent, because those questions are, they talk about integrity, how much money should Christian people want to be, what lifestyle even, because it is from a Christian perspective, and it doesn't give you, you should not be rich or millionaire, but you can make a lot of money and then bless other people with that too. So this is a lot of open-ended questions in different sections that the parents can ask us to talk about, just make it a conversation. And as I was thinking about that, I remember times with my kids where I really enjoyed hearing what they were coming up with, because some of their answers are going to be based on what happens in the home, what we're teaching at home, anyway, our own style of living and stuff like that. And others are going to be what they learn from their friends or what they see in the media, and then what they themselves are figuring it out. So it's really, really neat to see, oh my gosh, I did not realize my child has this understanding. It's just really neat. It creates really nice moments. And the other thing that this book has is like speeches and different things from different people in history. For example, something that was written in 1776 by Adam Smith, and something about from the Egyptians. From John Winthrop from 1630. Currently. Oh, go ahead.
A lot of good names in there. Adam Smith was a 17th century. Was he 17th century? He was a Scottish economist, and he from the 17th century. He wrote a book called the Wealth of Nations, and he's basically considered the father of modern day economics. And and he talks about the invisible hand, and he talks about all these natural forces that happened in economics. And where I come from is, okay, what are those core roots, those natural things that happen within economics, and what are we doing today that's been causing a lot of problems and disruptions and stuff like that. So and that's kind of where I come from, and I want to peel back everything that the natural, a typical economist will teach you nowadays. I want to peel that back and go back to the root of what is it actually supposed to be. So just food for thought.
Oh, absolutely. So there's a ton of speech, Ronald Reagan and other people.
Can you give me that other book? I want to just mention something that you touched on.
Which one?
It's the Exploring Economics, the one with the boat on it. Okay, so I think you mentioned in this particular book that it talks about integrity.
Correct.
There was I don't remember the guy's name, but there's a book called Millionaire Next Door. The guy that wrote that book wrote another book, and he kind of expanded on, and he basically did a bunch of research on millionaires and really wealthy people. And what he found was the number one characteristic of those wealthy people was high levels of integrity. See, and going back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of what I do in trying to teach somebody how to be successful in their finances, a lot of it's behavioral. So having high levels of integrity is a really big, important something to pass on to your kid.
So it's kind of funny that book mentions Adam Smith, because another one that I found here is from Master Books, Intro to Economics. So what Master Books likes to do, instead of writing a textbook, they like to find books that they seem to be interesting. So they found this one called The Bankruptcy of Our Nation. In this video, Money Wise. In the first chapter in this video, my husband and I watched last night, it's about Adam Smith. And it was kind of neat. I was kind of surprised. So what they do
So you know more about Adam Smith than I do.
A little bit.
Was 17th or 18th century?
I don't remember. But what this company does is they create a little sketch also. They tell you, like, watch video 1 about Adam Smith, and then they'll have some questions for the kids to think about. And then maybe watch chapter 1, or read chapter 1 on this book, and so on. So they create like a little workbook / teacher guide. And I actually found this one kind of interesting too, because it starts with what money really is, short history of fiat currencies, and so on.
Does it talk about the Chinese and the Song Dynasty at all? Do you know?
Let's see, because I did not get that far.
Okay. I can take a look at it later. That's interesting.
But anyway, so it's I mean, it doesn't look, it looks a little dry, but because it's just writing. But as I was reading it, it really wasn't. It was pretty specific. This, a darkened section, the outsourcing of American jobs, for example, and then explains what it is and what is happening, what effect does it has, breakdown of Social Security, destruction of the U.S. dollar. Just it's very straightforward, a lot more straightforward than the net grass. But it was very interesting and well written, and I think the combination of these two are very, very good. So they're pretty smart to do that. So that's another option.
I had so finance and economics, a lot of it, like you said, it's very straightforward. It can be very dry and very, your students can be very disinterested in this. So I'll bring up an example. When I was in college, I don't remember his name, unfortunately, but I had a calculus teacher I had a business calculus teacher that was from Las Vegas. And all the questions on the exam were all gambling games.
Oh, wow.
And it was calculate the probability of drawing an ace of spade from a deck of 52 cards. And so, needless to say, I won a lot of money at poker that year. But he made it. He took a really boring, okay, we're gonna calculate this in this very boring way. It's like just this stuff can be dry. Take the initiative to have a little bit more creative, kind of that creative mindset with it, and see how can you make it interesting. How can you spark that curiosity? How can you make it more applicable to your student right now in their stage of life that they can easily understand?
Yeah, and I do think a lot of these books do that. So even if the Bankruptcy of America seem a little bit dry, they incorporated the DVD. So that's good. And obviously this are great too. Yeah. Okay, so the other one that we recently got, this is from Matthew C. And I should be doing a Facebook Live with Gretchen Ross. She was here yesterday. Thank you so much, Gretchen, for being here. We were talking about Matthew C. at the time, but we did not talk about the stewardship. So this is one that we're going to be doing a Facebook Live pretty soon. So this is actually really neat. So you're going to be learning about money, percentage, income tax, banking, checking, budgeting. So this book teaches all of those things. There is a streaming service, a streaming. They don't have it on DVD. It has to be on streaming. That Mr. Demis is giving that small lecture. So that's probably what makes it more interesting. And then going hand in hand with that, they also have Bible study that also teaches about money and finances. So this is like an amazing. Oh, and then there's another workbook, but I didn't want to open it because it's shrink wrapped. So I wanted to keep it pretty. But oh my gosh, there is so much to learn about money in the Bible. It's amazing.
I mean, how many Bible verses there are? There's a lot.
Yeah. So then another one that is good to use is consumer math. So this is a traditional one from Bob Jones. So this is a Christian school book, and it's pretty good too. Let's see some of the. Anyway, you're learning about rates, rations, proportions. I'm trying to get to the first part.
Get to the index.
To the index, because there's so much. Money, timekeeping.
It talks about stocks and bonds,
Stocks and bonds. Yes, standardized budgets again, really important. So this is a really good basic one, and I kind of liked it because I like the layout. It doesn't feel very overwhelming. Adult insurance.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, that's not so fun for a 16-year-old boy, huh? Or 17.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I got hosed on that, let me tell you.
I bet. Yeah. Utilities too. Paying utilities. So those are all things that you need to incorporate in your budgets that you don't even think about.
And it's like these are all the things that you really don't get exposed to until your parents kick you out. You know what I mean?
My gosh, yes. And then the last one over there is also economics from Bob Jones. So that's also traditional school book. And it does. I personally like how Bob Jones narrates the stories, the way they write. I know there's been other parents that don't like it as much, but I think it's pretty decent.
There's a lot to choose from. And there's what works with your family.
Will be different. Yes. Absolutely. Okay, so we have parents. I was talking to a parent. It was last year. This year has been too crazy too. To have a lot of extra time with the shop.
To remember all the names.
Oh my gosh, yes. But she actually is in her 40s, and she still owes over $20,000 of student debt. Okay. And so what would be a recommendation for you, for parents that still have student debts, or even students themselves who just got trapped and they believed the lie, and now they have all the student debt that they need to take care of. So student debt is not forgivable, correct?
So funny enough, I was actually talking to a client of mine about this. So he has about roughly around $50,000 in student loan debt, and he works for the government. There's a program called the Public Servant Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, this basically the idea of the program was you work for 10 years or 120 some odd pay periods, and you will, you work for a 501c3, you work for the government, your debt will be forgiven. I don't remember exactly when the program was launched, but out of the 50,000-ish applicants from that program, only 3,700 since the program started have actually got their loans forgiven. That's less than 1.5% of applicants, of eligible applicants. So, my thing is, there's a very low probability of you actually getting your loans forgiven through that avenue, through that channel. As of right now, the student loans are, it'd be very hard. Like, you would literally need to lose both your arms and legs to get it forgiven in bankruptcy court. So it's just the way that the law is, and right now, and there's a lot of talks about in Congress, and we're going to get the student loan forgiven and all that stuff. Well, takes an act of Congress. So the first thing I would say, first and foremost, regardless of how much money you owe, the thing that you need to get through your mind, remember, it's personal finance is more personal than it is finance, and we have to address the behavior. You have to remind yourself constantly, you can do this, you can pay it off, you can accomplish this. This is not the end of your life, this is not the end of the world. You can do this, and I think it comes back to God being good in His promises. So there is still hope. You can still do this. Again, it is possible. That's number one.
Absolutely.
Number two, what's the saying? Hard times make strong men.
Oh, yes.
So it's you really have to hunker down, and you have to rely on God and yourself to get you out of this. So we need to, like I said, get the budget going, figure out how much you're spending, and then say, you know what, I don't need Netflix, I don't need Disney Plus, I don't need cable or whatever. You shouldn't be watching the news anyway. You figure out what you need. Again, Dave Ramsey, rice and beans, beans and rice. Just get the four walls taken care of. Your keep the water running, keep the lights on, make sure you got shelter and food. Get what basic things you need to survive. Every single dollar after that, chuck it at the debt. Now, traditionally in the finance industry, what they'll tell you is, you should pay your highest interest debt first and then your lowest interest debt. In our experience, we find that if you list out your smallest debt and then work your way up to your largest debt, and you attack the smallest to the largest, what you're doing is that we're kind of in our experience, that's more effective, because you're focusing on, okay, I just paid off this 2,000 credit card. Okay, this feels good. I got that paid off. And then we paid off the 5,000 on the car. Okay, we got that paid. Okay, then we got paid off this ugly medical bill. Okay, and then you're just getting yourself going, and you're on a roll essentially. And so we're just snowballing that debt. So another point to make is, and this kind of applies more for a mortgage. So Jamie and I put, I think, an extra about $700 extra on top of our mortgage as a payment.
Very good.
So by doing just an extra $700, you're cutting the amount of time to pay off that mortgage by half. So basically, you're treating you're treating a 30-year mortgage as a 15-year mortgage, and that. No more mortgage, that's extra money in your pocket, and that's equity in your home and what it's worth. So when you apply that same concept to debt, like, okay, I'm going to chuck an extra $100 or $200 a month, and the bigger that amount that you're chucking towards your debt is, the less time it's taking you to pay it off. And so it's, if you unfortunately, I'm used to having situations where we know a young lady who, is a teacher, and she just went to a lot of expensive schools, and she has over $190,000 in student loan debt.
gosh.
Yeah, and she's a teacher. So, first, like I said, first and foremost, you guys have every ability to do this. It is possible. There is
possible.
hope. And then it's just hunkering down, and it's being disciplined, and the amount of growth that comes from that, in my opinion.
Oh my gosh! Can you imagine
the amount of
accomplishment?
The accomplishment, the growth, the testimony that brings. So that way you're giving other people hope and being generous with that.
Yeah.
So there's so much that you can do but you gotta, it's trial by fire. Unfortunately, there's no way around it. But that's what I would say, and that's what I would recommend. But
Very
then,
good.
But then also, so another thing I mentioned. So that same lady or young woman, we asked her. We had a high school student in our financial peace university class, and I asked her to come in and just kind of share her story and what happened. So she was able to show someone, just graduating high school, hey, this is not what you want to do.
Absolutely.
So big opportunities to do a lot of good, not only for yourself but for others as well, and your children.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things, like you were saying, you graduated in 2010 from high school, and it was college. So that is an American thing too, and actually true to everybody wants to be educated and have degrees and so on, but there are a lot of public schools, So here you have to pay more, which is, people want to come here because education is better. So I'm not. Yes, kind of
better.
Yes, but
I got a whole slew of talking points on that. But
yeah, we'll go there on another time.
Yeah.
But parents, they themselves have been just heard that so much. It's like they're gonna go to college no matter what, even if it takes student loans. So what I want to say is that there are options. You can go to college if that's the route that is the best thing for your child. You can go to college. Bill Bennett wrote a book called "Is College Worth It?" and he studied tons of colleges, and he basically said there's only one college, including Princeton and Harvard and all of those. There's only one that a student loan, you can still make enough money, make it worth having a student loan, and that was oh my gosh, in California. Whatever it is.
Not UC Berkeley.
No. I just drew a blank. It's
not
a private
US.
one.
Not
it's a private one.
It was it like
Stanford.
Oh, okay.
It was Stanford. So he says that's the only college that you can get a student loan from his comparison or whatever and make for it. Besides that, he says don't get student loans. And what he recommended is don't live on campus. Take advantage of as much scholarships as you can, and there's so
live
many
with your parents, and parents be nice enough to let your college student live there rent free.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mom.
That's right. Be nice to your parents, so they want to keep you there.
Right. So part of my college experience, looking back at it now, if I would have gone to ASU and lived on campus, I'd probably be dead in a ditch somewhere. But so I had no idea what I was going to do, and in all honesty, I was kind of afraid of college because I just, never been to any kind of public school institution really. So I kind of had a weird, interesting experience. So part of my story was that when I started college, I started with community college. That is the worst kept. I mean, it's like the worst kept secret. It's like if you're going to go, if you have no money and if you're going to take on student loans and you're going to go to college. I don't know what the rates are now. I'm sure it's gone up. But when I started Maricopa Community College, it was $74 a credit hour. When I graduated, it was like $84. So it went up $10 over a span of like 3.5 years. It took me a while to get my degree. But if you're going to go to college, try to find out the cheapest alternative. And
Absolutely.
if you're going to take on student loans, like you said, I highly do not recommend doing any kind of loan at all. There's nothing wrong with paying your way through college. I had my pool cleaning business. I was running sound at my church. I was again making peanuts, but I was able to get some Pell Grants and some other things to help pay for half my education for free, essentially. So try to utilize all those different resources. If you're a high school student and you're about to graduate, you should be spending at least an hour to an hour and a half every single day just researching and trying to apply to different scholarships. There is so much free money out there.
There is.
Oh my goodness. So part of my story was I went to community college. I graduated at Glendale Community with my associates in business, and that was all geared towards going to Arizona State. Arizona State is like astronomically expensive, as some of you already know. A family, and I think this is just God's intervention, a family friend of mine told me about Southern New Hampshire University, and they actually have a campus out in Manchester, New Hampshire, and it's an actual school that's accredited and all that stuff, but they really invested in their online program. So not only was I able to work full-time and, you know, bring in an income with my wife and I, but I was able to continue my education from home at my own pace. And so there, you know, especially with COVID and with the technology that's been kind of thrust upon people, I mean, it's, you know, in my opinion, if you're going to go to college, unless you have like a rich uncle or you're able to live on campus and pay for it and you're disciplined enough to actually finish, like that's another thing too. It's like, why are you going to go to college if you're not going to finish your degree? So it's like, get a job, get that actual industry experience. And one of the reasons why I got my IT job was because, hey, this is my degree, I got my associates, you know, I got that first before I really started applying, because I wanted to show a potential employer, hey, I'm motivated, I'm trying to get my stuff done. And it just makes you look more attractive that way. I'm attractive, no. No, but like, but you're just trying to motivate, you're trying to show an employer that you're a good worker and that you're motivated and you get stuff done. And, you know, I don't come from Money Bags, you know, Incorporated, and I didn't grow up in Northern Scottsdale, but hey, this is what I'm doing to work my way up. And it's that you're just making yourself look desirable.
Absolutely.
So,
and then another thing is, like we were saying, you know, when you're homeschooling, you're learning yourself. So I grew up in a different country, so I did not know the way that things happen in this country to go to school. So I had to learn also. So you are going to be learning with your student about, you know, just go to the websites, go to the library. I guess for my oldest one, it was the library. I learned so much from books because she wanted to be an athlete. So both of my kids started community college, and sometimes people, they think community college doesn't have the greatest teachers. So I'm going to tell you, my oldest one, she's a musician, and her first community college teacher from Phoenix College, he was a Juilliard graduate. He was the best teacher she had. Actually, that's not true, because she also had some great ones afterwards. Now that I'm thinking, I don't want to poo-poo her other teachers, because they're really good. But anyway, so community college is really a great option, and even my kids are not geniuses. They got some athletic scholarships. They got the average scholarship, also one of my child. So for my first one, all I paid was $1,500 for her 4 years of education, plus books, which was expensive too. For my second one, she got she started community college too, and then she decided to go to GCU, and she had a scholarship, and we had the book scholarships, all this great scholarships that she could keep applying for, but she just didn't want it to. She just got tired of applying. So what we did, my husband is an accountant. He did a little math thing, and he decided that she would have to pay, I believe it was like 24.6%. Don't ask me why, the accounting, but anyway, so guess what she did? She got a job. She got a job, and she worked like crazy all summer long, and she actually was able to pay us ahead of time each year before it started, so she didn't owe 1 penny when she finished college.
So so let me go back to SNHU really quick. If I would have went to Arizona State, it would have cost me like $6,000 or $600 a credit hour, or like $700 a credit hour. At Southern New Hampshire, I will try to vouch for those guys every time, because at least when I was going, it was like $320 a credit hour.
Oh wow!
So it was basically $1,000 a class, and you know, all my credits at GCC were geared for ASU. Out of the 70 some odd credits I had. SNHU was very competitive, and they took like 67. So they took the majority of it, and I was very impressed. So, but finding cheaper alternatives. I mean, the lie about community college being, or the saying that community college is inferior to university.
It's not.
Really? I've had some of the best teachers or professors I've ever had in my life came from community colleges, and they were solid people. You know, you go to a traditional university, you take like a 101 level English course, and you're dealing with a stadium worth of students, where in a community college, it's like just going to any other public school. There's like 20, 30 kids, or 20, 30 students, and there's the one teacher, and
Absolutely.
they're reviewing your work, and they know you, and you see them on a daily basis. So, in my opinion, the sadistic joke I have for community college is that you were either not smart enough to get into university, or no, you were dumb. You were not smart enough to get into university, or you were smart enough to not pay an arm and a leg for college. So that's
it's
how I
a
say
great
it.
option. So
Do not discount it at all.
So your mom and I are gonna have to do a Facebook Live about different options.
Yes.
You know, there's WestMac, there's technical schools. You can actually graduate from high school.
Oh, yeah.
With a degree, ready to go into the job market.
So
no debt.
my youngest brother Luke, he went to WestMac, and he graduated high school as a certified machinist. He goes to one of those shops here in town, and he's like, so what does the pay look like here? And he goes, well, assuming you have this license and this experience, yeah, you'll start off at $65,000 with full benefits.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, he just turned 20, and I look at him and say, and I tell people this, and I go, yeah, and I was the stupid one that went to college. But yeah,
there's so many options.
There's so many options, but college is not for everybody. We're learning that lesson now with the $1.7 trillion that this nation has in student loan debt. And it's so bad that even AARP, the lobbyist group for retired persons, guess who's co-signing little Johnny's student loans? It's grandma and grandpa. So it's so bad that even AARP is concerned about it and has expressed a lot of, hey, we need to figure this out because, I will tell one more story. I was a stockbroker at Charles Schwab, and I had a client call in. She was, well into her 60s or 70s. She had an IRA account, probably had maybe a little over $100,000 in it. She drained the whole thing. And I'm like, so what are we doing with the money? Because that's taxable income. And she goes, I'm helping my grandson pay off his student loans. And I asked the question, and then right after that, in the back of my mind, like, oh, you shouldn't have asked that. I asked her, what did he major in? Film. So, and yeah, she told me that they had came to a settlement to a certain dollar amount. She was just going to pay it off. And it's just a really hard, sad situation right now. There's a lot of debate about how we're going to fix this, but the best thing that we can do right now is set up your students up for success so they can avoid those pitfalls that my generation is going through right now.
Absolutely.
So.
Anyway, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It was great seeing it. Do we have any questions or any comments or anything we wanted to...
Let's see, Chris, do you see any?
Do we have any? No.
We couldn't see them, but we will answer them if you did write them down. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks,
See ya. Nice seeing you.
It's still getting there.
Yeah, we're still... End it.